Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 6 2016 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was a bit of a sour week for both sets of my picks. Against the spread, I went 5-7-1. So, for the first time with my against the spread picking all year, I believe, I had a push. So, in some ways, I kind of felt happy about that, but also not happy about it because it ended up being a tie. So last week, so this week or last week, since I'm recording this video on a Monday, I've gone 5-7-1 against the spread. Well, straight up, I am 7-6 right now with the Monday night game, and I'm taking Carolina against the spread and straight up. So, just a little reminder there for everybody. But now, overall, for the year, against the spread, I am 32, 42, and 1, which is 43%. So, I'm not very proud of my against the spread picking. It's my first year doing it, and I'm getting better at it, but I've kind of realized that, every week against the spread, it's tougher to pick favorites, or, it takes one or two plays to get a couple games go your way or not go your way. And straight up, I am now 44-33, 57%. So at this point of the year, not very happy with where I'm at. I wanted to be at about 60% by this time of the year, but there's still a good amount of the season left, and I do believe by the end of the year I can get into that 60-62% range with how many games are left. So this week for buys, the Minnesota Vikings and Tampa Bay Buccaneers both have buys this week. So if you have Sam Bradford, the Vikings defense, Stephon Diggs, Doug Martin, Jameis Winston, Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson, the Bucs defense. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they will not be playing this week. And what a wacky week in the NFL, just like all of them are. I do want to congratulate teams such as the New England Patriots. Tom Brady looked like he was 28, even though he's 39, playing a spectacular game, against the Cleveland Browns. I know it was the Cleveland Browns, but still, after having a full month off, not having any contact with any of his teammates or coaches or staff, to put up 400 yards like that and the way he did it was just incredibly impressive. And Tom Brady is still defying time, and with how good he's been playing or how good I think he will play, I do believe that he can continue to defy time. So kudos to the Patriots there. And for the Brownies, thankfully the Indians and the Cavs are around so they can have some optimism in Cleveland, because right now the Browns are just an absolute disaster. Cody Kessler and Charlie Whitehurst both went down. So that meant that in the game, Terrell Pryor was starting at quarterback. Again, he's played 9 games in the NFL as a starting quarterback. He is 3-6. And actually, you know what? If they both can't go, I just start Terrell Pryor. He's been the best offensive weapon Cleveland's had the entire year. He's been the best receiving threat the Browns have had the entire year. Isaiah Crowell has done a better job than he has. But to me, I'd give Terrell Pryor a shot at quarterback. Maybe for this year for the Browns, he can be their flash, their Cordell Stewart. A great wide receiver, but just a good enough quarterback to get them through this year. So good luck Brownies with that one. And I guess speaking of the Browns, let's go Browns West with the San Diego Chargers. I could not believe how they lost that game. And it's unbelievable that the San Diego Chargers have this Browns-type feel about them this year, that in every game, they're either competing in the game, or more so San Diego, they're in every single game. And they just find the weirdest and most bizarre ways to lose the games. Week 1, they blow a 21-point lead against Kansas City. Week 2, they blow out Jacksonville. Wow, that was impressive. Week 3, botched Hunter Henry kind of grab. A Hunter Henry fumble, Josh Lambo missing an extra point. Last week, they have 2 fumbles on back-to-back drives, giving the Saints offense 2 extra possessions, which they converted into touchdowns. And now, this week, the long snapper botches the snap, and they can't even tie the game. So, I think Mike McCoy is going to get fired after Thursday because I don't expect them to win. But the San Diego Chargers become the Browns West. I feel bad for their fans, and I feel bad for Phillip Rivers, who's having another sensational year. But their own team can't get in their own way. So, just my quick thoughts on that. And sorry for Charger fans all across the country. Alright, so, time for my picks. So, this Thursday, when the 4-1 Denver Broncos go to the 1-4 San Diego Chargers. The Denver Broncos are 2.5-point favorites. I'm going to take Denver minus 2.5, along with Denver straight up. And then on Sunday, when the 1-4 San Francisco 49ers go to the 3-2 Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 7.5-point favorites. I'm going to take Buffalo minus 7.5 and Buffalo straight up. And in the next game, when the 3-1 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 3-2 Washington Redskins, the Philadelphia Eagles are 2-point favorites. I'm going to take Philadelphia minus 2, along with Philadelphia straight up. And in the next game, when the 0-5 Cleveland Browns go to the 2-3 Tennessee Titans, the Tennessee Titans are 6-point favorites. I'm going to take Tennessee minus 6, along with Tennessee straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens go to the 2-3 New York Giants. The New York Giants are 3-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Baltimore plus 3, but I am going to take the Giants straight up. And in the next game, when the 2-3 or 1-4 Carolina Panthers go to the 1-3 New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers are 3-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Carolina minus 3 and straight up. And in the next game, when the 1-3 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 1-4 Chicago Bears, the Chicago Bears are 2-point favorites in this game. I actually am going to take Jacksonville plus 2 and Jacksonville straight up. And in the next game, when the 3-2 Los Angeles Rams go to the 2-3 Detroit Lions, the Detroit Lions are 3-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Detroit minus 3, along with Detroit straight up. And in the next game, when the 4-1 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 1-4 Miami Dolphins, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 7.5-point favorites against the Dolphins. I'm going to take Pittsburgh minus 7.5 and also straight up. And in the next game, when the 2-3 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 4-1 New England Patriots, the New England Patriots are 8-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Cincinnati plus 8, but New England straight up. And in the next game, when the 2-2 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 4-1 Oakland Raiders, the Oakland-Kansas City game is a pick'em, so I'm going to take Oakland against the spread and straight up in that instance. And then the next game, when the 4-1 Atlanta Falcons go to the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks are 6-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Atlanta plus 6, but Seattle straight up. And in the next game, when the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys go to the 3-1 Green Bay Packers, the Green Bay Packers are 4-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Dallas plus 4, but Green Bay straight up. And then in the Sunday night game, when the 2-3 Indianapolis Colts go to the 3-2 Houston Texans, the Houston Texans are 3-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Indianapolis plus 3 and Indianapolis straight up. And then in the Monday night game, when the 1-4 New York Jets go to the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals are 7.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Arizona minus 7.5 and also Arizona straight up. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. Denver and San Diego. San Diego, I called them Browns West earlier in the video, and I think that's apropos for this season for the Chargers. They have been competitive in every single game, and actually they've been competitive in every game. This is a great stat I found out, or I did some math. San Diego, in the 5 games they've played, have only trailed for an hour, 23 minutes, and 35 seconds. So think about that. In football time, that's what, 5 hours. They played 5 hours of games, and in those 5 hours, in those 5 games, they've only trailed for an hour, 23 minutes, and 35 seconds. And it is unbelievable that they are 1-4. And actually, San Diego, yesterday in the fourth quarter, was the first quarter all year they trailed from behind the entire way. Even though they could have tied it to end it there. And again, I want to give a lot of credit to Phillip Rivers. I'm a Rivers supporter. I think he's a great statistical quarterback, but the stats really don't do a lot of things. And last year, I thought he blew some games, or the 500-yard game against Green Bay, the game against Chicago, the game against Oakland last year. He had his moments where he didn't show up, but this year he's put his team in positions to win. It has been most of the defense, and I really can't blame him this year. And he's had another sensational year: 68% completion percentage, 1,469 yards. 11 TDs to only 3 interceptions. If there is one bright spot for San Diego from yesterday's game, I do have to give Joey Bosa a lot of credit. In his first NFL action. He did record 2 sacks and 5 overall tackles. That is very impressive, especially coming off a month. So that's kind of the pace you want for your rookie. And I do think that if he can keep playing at this level or a little, stay at this level, he can be productive for this defensive line, which needs all the help it can get. And also, I do want to congratulate Melvin Gordon for scoring another touchdown in his 6th consecutive game. I think that breaks a rookie, or it breaks a season record. I'm not exactly sure. Actually, wait, I don't think it does because of LT, but I think he's the first guy since LT in 06 to score a touchdown in the first 6 games for the San Diego Chargers. So congrats to Melvin Gordon for that. And I look at San Diego, and it's where the defense is the problem. They're 2nd overall offense in points and 4th overall in passing yards. So Phillip Rivers in this offense, without Keenan Allen, without Danny Woodhead, Antonio Gates has been hobbling, and their offensive line's been banged up. They're doing all they can. It's just their defense can't do anything. And they're playing a Denver team that yesterday they gave up 6 sacks. That's the most since 2011 when Tebow was behind center. And Paxton and, Tebow, Paxton has a lot more ability, and also I think that, when you let Vic Beasley get 4 sacks in a game, also the Broncos have now had the only 2 4+ sack games in the last 2 years. Khalil Mack did it the year before when he had 5. And also, when Denver loses to an NFC team at home the first time since 2011, Week 5, when Detroit beat Tebow and the Broncos, I just think it's something where when you look at this game, I think there's just an aura of San Diego's going to find a way to lose this game. That's what I'm saying. I think San Diego has an offense that can compete against Denver's defense. They always have been. Their division rivals. Phillip Rivers has always seemed to play well against a Denver team. And I do want to give the Denver defense credit. For the most part, they gave up 139 yards to Telvin Coleman, and the Atlanta running backs had over 180 yards receiving, which is the most any kind of running back duo or pair or group of running backs have had in a single game since Week 15 or Week 16 of 2014, when the Chiefs had Davis, Ware, and Thomas have that many receiving yards. So I do want to give the Denver defense credit for their receivers, because no Atlanta receiver had 50 or more yards. But just looking at this game of all those numbers and all those different metrics, I just find a way that Denver is going to find a way to win this game, or San Diego will find I have more confidence in San Diego will find another way to lose another game against a very talented defense and an offense with Paxton Lynch or not. He's not going up against or Simeon. I think that Denver has confidence knowing that they're in a better position. They have more talent. And just the San Diego psyche is, look, we're going to put up a fight, but we're going to end up blowing the game somehow in a, mind-blowing blunder. And I think with all the injuries on top of that, they don't have Jason Verrett, their best corner, so Thomas and Sanders should have better matchups. And I think if Paxton or Simeon plays, they should be able to exploit those, and Denver's defense will do a good enough job to get Rivers in, rough situations. And the Broncos will win the game. I think it should be a competitive game because these two teams always seem to play competitive games. But Denver winning 5 straight in San Diego, combined with all the other factors I mentioned, that's why I have confidence taking Denver -2.5 and Denver straight up. Just because I don't have any confidence in San Diego being able to finish a game, and against a Denver team that wants some revenge pretty quickly or wants to get back on track quickly, this is the wrong team to play against after what Atlanta did to them. That's why I'm taking Denver over San Diego. San Francisco, Buffalo over San Francisco. I want to shout out a guy that's been commenting on my videos the last 2 weeks, Jerome Jasper. I do want to give your Buffalo Bills a tremendous amount of credit. They have surprised me over the last 3 weeks. The LA game, that was a tough one. I thought LA at home could have played, would have played better, but obviously they did not, and it's showing that, again, Jeff Fisher can play against the NFC West well. Against anybody else, not really that good. So if you're the NFC West or Tampa, Jeff Fisher will give you a fight. If you're not one of those 4 teams, you probably can beat Jeff Fisher. So I do want to give your team a lot of credit. The Buffalo offense, the first 3-game winning streak for the Bills since 2011. Rex Ryan's first 3-game winning streak as a head coach since weeks 12 through 14 of the 2011 season. Anthony Lynn, they have given awards last year for the best coordinator of the year. They started doing that. And Anthony Lynn is my coordinator of the year. Since he has been with the Bills over the last 3 weeks, they have averaged 178 yards on the ground per game. And that is how Rex Ryan wants to play football. This is a ground and pound attack with Tyrod making smart throws, making the offense more open. So if there was, for the coordinator of the year, I'm giving that to Anthony Lynn for the Buffalo Bills. What a great move by the organization, and it's paid off tremendously in ways that I did not expect. Also, for LaShawn McCoy, 150 yards on the ground himself. That was the highest for him since Week 13 of the 2014 season when he had 153 yards. So the Buffalo offense right now, especially if how they're running, is running on all cylinders and firing on all cylinders with how Rex Ryan wants to play. And also, I want to give Justin Hunter credit. His first play as a Buffalo Bill, after getting claimed off waivers by the Miami Dolphins, went for a touchdown. So good for him. And Nikel Roby-Coleman, I thought this was interesting. I was watching the game. Nikel Roby-Coleman, who got his second turnover touchdown of the year, good for him. Got a pick six off Case Keenum. He's thrown 2 now, which I believe leads the league. He actually has the most interceptions in USC history with 3, and I thought that was interesting that playing in the building that he used to play at college, he got another pick six against a mediocre Case Keenum, or even worse than mediocre Case Keenum. And with that offense of how the Bills are running, they're playing a Niner team that is in shambles. The second straight year for the Niners, they are 1-4. For the first time since 1960, the Niners have allowed 4 running backs to have 100-plus yards in 4 consecutive games. And with this Buffalo offense running with 178 yards per game, I have no problem saying that they're going to go for 5 with how that Bills rushing attack has been going. And also, the San Francisco offensive line gave up a season-high 7 sacks. Blaine Gabbert looks like Blaine Gabbert. He actually has the second worst record through 40 starts in NFL history. That's according to Elias. He is 9-31. He's tied with Warren Moon. It's kind of sad, for Warren Moon, who's much better than Blaine Gabbert, but that's a little fun fact there. I think it's time for Colin Kaepernick to come in. Colin Kaepernick can't do much worse. He's renegotiating his contract, and honestly, he's a better runner. He's got a better arm. And honestly, I think Colin Kaepernick, he has more of an upside this year to make the Niners competitive than Blaine Gabbert has. So, with all that being said, I just think Buffalo, they're going to run through San Francisco's defense. The Buffalo defense will get pressure on Kaepernick. And I just think kind of with going into that atmosphere in Buffalo, it's going to be too much for Cap to handle. And I think the Bills get a very solid win. And for the first time all year, I'm taking the Bills to win. So, Jerome Jasper, there you go. I hope that's enough crow to say that I am on the Bills' side and do see the Bills as a, rising team. So that's what I'm thinking. Buffalo -7.5 and Buffalo straight up. Next game, Eagles at Redskins. Carson Wentz had ended his third, ended the passes about an interception streak at 135. That was the third longest for a rookie in NFL history. And it was kind of amazing because the Eagles did not commit a turnover in any of their games coming up until yesterday. On the last 2 drives of the game against Detroit, they committed 2. And for me, when you look at the Eagles, I actually think Carson Wentz deserves a little bit of blame here because he didn't need to go for the bomb touchdown or the big play in that moment. You have 1 minute and 23 seconds left. Take what the defense will give you and move the ball down enough where Sturgis can get an opportunity. Because the Lions are going to play prevent, and you just take the yards that you can until a certain point. Don't go for the bomb right away. Maybe go for the bomb if, you go 2 or 3 plays or 2 plays and get about 20 yards and go for a bomb. But don't do it on the first play because I just think Carson Wentz did not need to make that play at that time. So he does deserve a little bit of blame for that decision. He's a rookie and he will learn. But definitely the Wentz wagon stopped there for a bit just because of how he played for that play. And also, the Eagles shot themselves horribly in the foot. They had 14 penalties for 111 yards yesterday, where Detroit, on the other hand, only had 2 for 11. So they had 12 more penalties and 100 more extra yards. You're not going to win games like that if you're going to go through there. So where the Redskins now are on a bit of a roll. You know, they've won 3 straight games. Jamison Crowder had an 85-yard punt return for a touchdown. That is their first punt return touchdown for the Redskins since the 2008 season. Though, I think that one of the problems is, and it was a thing that the Ravens could not take advantage of, they stopped running the ball. They are the 30th ranked run defense in the league, and we only ran the ball, I think, 15 times for 98 yards. We should have kept pounding the rock. But that's a little diatribe, but kudos to Washington there for, you know, being able to put a tremendous man defense on all our receivers and shut us down through the air. And for Kirk Cousins, over the last 3 games, he's playing like the Kirk Cousins we saw last year, for the most part. 68.9% completion, 739 yards, 6 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Much better rate and a much better success rate of seeing the Washington Redskins win. You know, when I look at this game, I wouldn't be surprised if Washington won, but there's an aspect where I look at the 3 running backs, or actually 4 running backs the Philadelphia Eagles get to use in Ryan Matthews, Smallwood, Sproles, and Barner. I think that 4-headed monster, I think Doug Peterson will understand that the Redskins are horrible against the run, and he'll use that to make the Redskins off balance, and Carson Wentz can find time to make, you know, good play action throws. And even though the Redskins, you know, they do have, you know, Norman, who did have an injury, but he came back in the game, and Cousins is playing well, you know, I think it's something where Philadelphia's running game will balance out enough for Carson Wentz to be more effective, and I just see Kirk Cousins going up against this Eagles defense, which has played better than not over the year, to make a few more mistakes and see Kirk Cousins play a little bit more like Cousins played the first 2 weeks. And also, I think Philadelphia, you know, they're motivated because it's their first division game for the year in the NFC East. Should be a great game, and I'm going to go with Philadelphia. Trust the running game to balance out and to make attack balance. Where with Kirk Cousins, I don't see them running the ball that well, and I don't think Cousins will have enough time to make the throws and be effective with all the weapons that he has at his receiving core to his disposal. So that's what I'm taking Philadelphia -2 and Philadelphia straight up. The Titans and the Browns. Tennessee, that was a spectacular performance all across the board from the entire team. The Titans defense held the Miami Dolphins offense to no yards gained in the fourth quarter. That's impressive. Dude, after the first half, the Titans outran the Dolphins 235 yards, they outran the Titans, the Titans outran the Dolphins in the entire game 235 yards to 51, and on the ground through the first half, they had 172 yards on the ground by the end of the first half. Marcus Mariota, probably the second best game of his career, or you could argue the best game of his career. 4 total touchdowns by Mariota. I think that's the second time he's done that. The first time he did it was his first game when he threw 4 touchdown passes against Jameis Winston. And this Titans team just looked a lot more motivated. They were motivated from last year when they lost 38-10 to this Dolphin team. And I think one stat that was very telling for the Dolphins, but more so for the Titans sacked Ryan Tannehill 6 times yesterday. Going into the game, the Titans defense had 6 sacks through the first 4 games. So this whole Titans team was just much more well prepared, much more disciplined, executed their plays at a much higher efficiency. And shout out to Keith Bailey for his team. This is a big win to show that this team is, going in the right direction. And thankfully now they get to play the worst team in the NFL, who could now be on their 4th starting quarterback of the year. Charlie Whitehurst or Terrell Pryor may become the 27th different quarterback to start for the Browns since '99, and Cleveland's trying to avoid their first 0-6 start since 1999. And honestly, for Cleveland, like I said earlier in the video, the Cleveland Browns are just the factory of sadness. I know a Browns fan said that, but just to go through all these injuries at quarterback, it's amazing that they're already going to be possibly on their 4th quarterback. And when Charlie Whitehurst goes down, they may put Terrell Pryor in there, and he might be the next Cordell Stewart for them. Receiver to quarterback. And just looking at this game, Tennessee's just has a lot more talent around them. The Browns are just going through basically anything that they can to survive the year. Because honestly, I think they've just given up. And honestly, now Deshaun Watson is waiting for them. to take. And I just think the Titans, have kind of the advantage of talent. And I think that's it. Better running game. They're going to run through the Browns' defense. The offensive line's healthy. And just basically because the Browns just can't have a sustainable quarterback, I'm taking the Titans to win just off of that. It should be an interesting game because, again, Hugh Jackson's shown with this Browns team that he will make his team competitive and they will fight. But I just think if you're going on your fourth quarterback and you're going to have to go with Charlie Whitehurst, good luck with that. Even though, again, I do believe he played for the Titans last year. I think he won, actually. Or he played a game for the Titans, I think, over the last 2 years. But this time, he has nothing really to help him really work around. And they're just going to shut down Crowell. And that basically kind of seals the game for the Browns because they don't really have anything else offensively to work with. So, maybe besides Terrell Pryor, but he may be playing a quarterback. So if he's playing a quarterback, then that goes their best offensive weapon. So that's why I'm taking the Titans -6 and straight up. The next game, the Ravens at the Giants. It was Baltimore's first loss to the Redskins at home in franchise history. And unfortunately, over the last 2 years, it's kind of amazing. We are 4-7 in our last 11 home games. In the second half, and I think this was very telling. And by the way, I guess we fired our offensive coordinator, Mark Trestman. I thought this was the right time to do it. I never really was a fan of Mark Trestman getting hired anyway. I wanted to hire Adam Gase, who is now the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. But now we are going to replace him with Marty Morningwig, a Andy Reid disciple. He was the offensive coordinator for Andy for several years. He went on, to be the Jets offensive coordinator with Geno Smith. I don't really give him that much flack for that because the Jets really didn't have anything to work with back in 2014. And we took him in as our quarterback coach over the last couple of years. And I think getting Marty Morningwig as our offensive coordinator will help adjust this offense a lot. And I think we will have more production and a better emphasis on the running game. But in the second half of 3 of the 5 games we played, the Ravens haven't scored an offensive touchdown. The two games we played where we scored offensive touchdowns was against Cleveland and was against Oakland. 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL. So if you want to say, well, we're doing great, or we could score in the second half, it's like, no, we really can't. Because we're playing defenses that are dead last in the league in those categories. We're about dead last, so I don't really give our team that much credit putting up points on those low defenses. But I digress. And also just an aspect of with Baltimore, it's a comedy of self-inflicted errors over the last 2 weeks. We stopped running the ball against Oakland, which I didn't understand. We had 4 straight passing plays there. We go for a stupid fake field goal with Tucker, and he throws the ball right against Will Compton's helmet, which made no sense. And then C.J. Mosley tries to dive in for the end zone, but he falls forward and he fumbles the ball out of bounds. And if one of those plays work and the other doesn't, we win the game. If both plays work, I actually get the Ravens game right straight up and against the spread because that would have been a 4-point victory instead of a 6-point loss. So I digress with that. But we're playing a Giant team that you could argue is a mirror image of the Baltimore Ravens. One team that you could say has been overachieving, and one team that's been underachieving. 2 quarterbacks in Eli Manning and Joe Flacco. Playing about the same right now. Both guys, have won Super Bowls. Both guys are franchise quarterbacks. Both guys have gotten paid long-term extensions, which you could argue over the last couple years they have not deserved. The running games right now are... Well, I guess Baltimore's running game with Dixon and West, we might have a little bit of an edge at that. But the offensive lines are banged up and not really playing that well. The wide receiving cores aren't really doing anything. And the Giants' pass rush has become non-existent, especially when they paid $200 million into it. That is a horrible sign, especially for Steve Spagnuolo. And honestly, this is a mirror image of teams, in my opinion. And also, I do want to give Odell Beckham credit. He played a better game, and he got his first touchdown in 5 games. That was the longest drive of his career that he hadn't scored a touchdown in the end zone. And also, Eddie Lacy and James Starks ran for 147 yards on the ground. That is the most given up by the Giants defense this year. And they've never led in the last 2 games either. It's just been an absolute disaster. So looking at these two teams, these are mirror images of each other. And honestly, I'm taking the Giants to win just because it's an aspect of we're getting hurt again. We're starting to become last year's Ravens. We don't have our left tackle. We don't have another guard who went down. Two of our corners were out last week or yesterday. Steve Smith went down with an ankle injury. Max Williams was put on the IR. And we're just piling up the injuries. And I think the Giants have more talent. And it's just an aspect of, and this is a personal thing, I just have no confidence in the Ravens right now. I feel that the Giants will find a way to win this game, or the Ravens will find a way to lose this game. There's just a factor in me saying, even though the Giants have only won one time in this entire series between the Ravens and the Giants, I just have no confidence in my team to say, we are going to pull this game out, because the way we've lost our last two games just gives me no hope. And I'm looking at the Giants saying, I'm pretty sure Giant fans across the country feel the same way. They don't think the Giants have a shot to beat the Ravens either. One team has to win. We're probably not going to feel good about it for how it ended. But I think now with Marty Morningwood coming in, now we have to learn a new offense. It may be a positive, maybe a negative. Even though Morningwood's been the quarterback coach for the last couple years, it's Marty's offense. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think the Giants, they're at home. They're kind of in a better spot because of their division. They're playing desperate. And with more talent, that's why I have to give the Giants an edge. More talent, they're playing at home, and I just have no confidence in the Ravens right now to finish a game that they should win. We're going to put up a fight, but kind of like last year, we're going to probably blow it at the end off a self-inflicted wound, or we're going to make one bad throw or not make one throw or one run that we should have. It should be a great game, and honestly, for both fan bases, we're just going to be happy that somebody wins. I don't know if we're going to feel confident about it because both teams might say, well, it was the same thing with the Giants again or same thing with the Ravens. They couldn't start anything. They couldn't maintain. But somebody has to win, and I'm going to give it to the home team because I have no confidence in my team pulling a game out or finishing a game. So that's what I'm thinking. Baltimore +3, but the Giants straight up. Next game, Carolina and New Orleans. Carolina's offensive line has given up the 6th most sacks in the league with 13. Carolina is 28th in points allowed for defense. They've been, 27 points, I think, to San Francisco. They gave 21 to Denver. They gave up 22 to Minnesota. And they gave up about 45 to Carolina or to Atlanta. And honestly, for this game for me, it's I think Carolina, Derek Anderson or Cam Newton, whoever plays, I think Cam Newton should be back for this game against New Orleans next Sunday. Cam Newton will outshoot the New Orleans Saints, and I think their defense can just do a little bit better to hold on to win the game. Because the Saints defense at home this year has been awful. They've given up 80 points at home and 928 yards of total offense, including 35 points to the Raiders, 45 points by the Atlanta Falcons. And I just think Carolina's defense has a little bit of hope, and I just think Cam Newton has the talent around him with Stewart and Whitaker possibly coming back. You can add Cameron Artis-Payne as a third running back. Along with Benjamin, Olsen, Funches, and Brown, they just have more of an offense I trust than New Orleans to outscore them. It should be a great game, and for anybody that has fantasy players on these teams, use them because you're going to get a lot of points. But I just don't feel that when you're playing the worst defense in points per game and 31st in yards per game, Carolina just has more talent around them and a little bit of a better defense to say, okay, we can hold New Orleans to 30 points and we can score 37. That's the kind of game I see this way going. New Orleans over the last 4 years, nowhere near as good as home as over the beginning of the Sean Payton era. Over the last, going on 5 years now, they are 20-15 in their last 35 home games. So, don't have that much confidence. They've also lost 4 of the last 5 to the Panthers. And just with how Carolina's feeling, they're going to feel confident with Tampa and just going against New Orleans. It's not that New Orleans' offense is going to make Carolina's defense look any better, but same thing is going to be said about Carolina's offense with New Orleans' defense. And when you have the worst defensive points per game, I'm going to go with the team that doesn't. So that's what I'm taking Carolina in a shootout over New Orleans, -3. The next game, Jacksonville at Chicago. Jacksonville has won 3 games at home over the last 2 years, I believe, and they've won 2 games in London, which is their home field. So think about that. That's kind of amazing that they've almost won as many games in London, which is their home stadium, compared to their actual home stadium, Everbank Field. Also, I do want to give Blake Bortles and the entire team credit. That was the first game for Blake Bortles without an interception, and it was the first game all year for the Jaguars that they actually led at the half. And Allen Robinson had 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games after having none in the first 2. So the Jaguars, they got a quality win over an indie team that really doesn't have an offensive line, they just won. Put it that way. They just won a game, which for Gus Bradley and Jacksonville's confidence had to give them, a smile. And they're playing a Bears team that, amazingly, Brian Hoyer is leading this Bears team, and he's playing very well. He's the second QB in Bears history with 3 straight games of 300-plus yards passing. Josh McCown is the only other QB to do that in 2013. So kudos to Brian Hoyer. Again, he put on a great performance, but he didn't win. And I still think that Brian Hoyer is going to come back down to earth and show you that he's Brian Hoyer instead of this quarterback that you can just ride onto and, forget about Jay Cutler. Even though Hoyer is more coachable in those perspectives, but I'll take talent over Hoyer's intangibles in this example. And also, I'm going to give Jordan Howard a lot of credit. Back-to-back 100-yard games to the Bears rookie running back. He's the first rookie running back since Matt Forte to achieve that feat, so kudos to him. And Jacksonville's lost 3 or 4 against Chicago. But there's a part of me going with Chicago and Jacksonville. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago won this game. It's at home. They won their last game at home against a Detroit team. That was, kind of surprising. But with Jacksonville, I think rest for them is good. They've been dealing with injuries. I think Irene Yeldon, there's some confidence there. There could be some rust. But I think at the end of the day, Jacksonville just has better talent at the skills positions than Chicago does. And Chicago's just dealing with way more injuries than in this game. I'm going to go with the healthier team over possibly maybe the better managed team or the hotter team right now in the Bears compared to the Jags. Should be an interesting game, though. Again, I will not be surprised if Chicago wins. I'm going to take Jacksonville here. They're rested. They're more healthy. And I think that this is the game that Jacksonville can win and should win. Though, overall, I would call this the crappy toss-up game of the week. So that's what I'm taking, Jacksonville +2. And straight up, the next game, the Rams at the Lions. Case Keenum now leads the league with pick 6s with 2. He threw 1 to Quan Alexander, I believe, in Tampa. And he threw 1 to Bradley Nickel Roby-Coleman. I also want to say for the Rams that Todd Gurley, he's had 3 rushing touchdowns for the year, and they've all been 1 yard. So that's kind of surprising at this point that he hasn't had longer runs for touchdowns. But I guess kudos to the Rams for getting down to that point where he only had to run in for 1 yard. And Todd Gurley also scored the first touchdown for the LA Rams in LA since Chris Chandler's 1-yard TD run in Week 16 of the 1994 season. And for the Lions, again, that was a big win for them against Philadelphia. They caused the first 2 turnovers for Philadelphia. Offense the entire year. They caused Carson Wentz to throw his first interception by a great play by Darius Slay. And they only had 1 turnover in the first 4 games. So to get 2 yesterday, hey, there you go. You doubled your outtake for the entire year. And for the Lions, kind of like Atlanta, in a win, the Philadelphia defense basically did its job. No wide receiver for the Lions had less than 50 yards. Every Lion receiver had less than 50 yards receiving. So it wasn't like any of the receivers went off. I just think it was where Theo Riddick had a solid game. And actually for the Lions, it was the first time since 1941 and 1945 they beat the Eagles in consecutive tries. So kudos to Half Moon's Picks. Shout out to him. Check out his channel, Half Moon's Picks. Stephen Coleman, for your team getting a big win. But apparently from what I heard from some of the other progs, you did not expect them to win. And with Detroit and LA, they split the last 6 games. I'm going to go with Detroit here because, like I said last time, there's an aspect of Jeff Fisher with how if you're not Tampa or the NFC West, the chances are you are not going to be able to win. And I just think Detroit, they feel confident. They're rested. LA will give them a fight. But knowing what happened last year, because I think Stafford got, rocked around by them, that's kind of in their memory, especially Aaron Donald getting 3 sacks that game, which was his first 3-sack game of his career. I think the Lions are motivated just from last year, knowing how embarrassed they looked against the Rams. And I think that with it being in Detroit, home field advantage matters to me in this instance. It's a 3-point swing, which kind of for the spread, which always makes sense. And I felt confident about Detroit because I think they're showing that they were kind of the better team than I thought. It's kind of the NFL year at this point. Teams are 3-2 that are better 3-2s than non-3-2s, 2-3s, or non-better 2-3s. And there's still a little bit of kind of trying to separate the good and the bad. I'm going to take Detroit here because I believe that they have the home field advantage. They have the better receiving core and talent. And I just like how they're going to be able to stop Todd Gurley enough. And I think Case Keenum against this defense will have a tough time and probably will have another turnover, which costs them the game. Should be an interesting game. And again, LA, they always seem to play better as an underdog. I guess LA, I wouldn't be surprised LA wins. But I'm going to take Detroit here. I'm going to feel the roar and give the Lions their credit and their due and say they get this win and get back to 500. So that's what taking Detroit -3 and straight up. Steelers and Dolphins. Ben Roethlisberger, congrats to him. The most touchdown passes in Steelers history through 5 games with 13. So congrats to him. Also, Ben Roethlisberger has 6 straight home games where he's done 3 touchdowns or more, joining only Peyton Manning and Drew Brees as the other 2 QBs to have done that. So good for him. And the Steelers overall have won 7 straight home games. I also want to give a little shout out to Sammy Coates. First 2 touchdowns of his career. They were on absolute bombs by Ben. And this Steeler offense right now looks in peak form. And I think the New England Patriots should look out because that is the best team that you're going to have to play here next week. And I just think with the Steelers, they're playing the Dolphins, who are a sad team right now. The Dolphins' offensive line gave up 6 sacks to the Dolphins. Like I said earlier, the Titans only had 6 sacks going into the game. So to get 6 in one game, that's a horrible job by that Miami offensive line. And they're going against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which has guys like Timmons. They have Hargrave. They have some other good guys on the defensive line. I know Bud Dupree's not playing right now. Has some other defensive guys. They have McClendon and Tuitt, and I just like the Steelers' defense. And also for Ryan Tannehill, he's playing like Ryan Tannehill. 3 TDs and 5 interceptions in the last 3 games for Tannehill. It's been an absolute disaster for this Miami team. That looks like it's getting outworked and outperformed in every facet of the game. And this Pittsburgh team just is the wrong team to run into if you want to gain any confidence. I just think Pittsburgh, they're going to run the ball better, throw the ball better. They're just clearly the better team. And that's why I have no problem taking them -7.5 and straight up in this game. So that's taking Pittsburgh over Miami. New England and Cincinnati. Congrats to Bill Belichick. He moves solely into 4th place on the all-time wins for coaches, passing Curly Lambeau with 227 wins. And also for the Patriots, he's the second QB 39 or older with 400-plus passing yards and 3 touchdowns in a game. The other QB to do that at age 39 was Warren Moon. And also, here's a little fun fact for the New England Patriots. First time in franchise history, the Pats have played their first 5 games without an interception. The Pats have not made an interception, which is kind of amazing, but that's just how the Pats are. And, for Tom Brady, it was an incredible performance, but it was the Browns who are the worst team in the league right now. I think most people would agree with that. And honestly, when he plays these winless teams at this point, he has been absolutely dominant. He is 6-0 against 0-4 or worse teams with 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And also, here's the last fun little stat for the New England Patriots. Martellus Bennett, who had a sensational game, he actually had a more dominant game than Gronk did. He joins Randy Moss and Gronk as the only players with 3 touchdown catches in a single game over the last 20 years. It's those 3 guys, Martellus Bennett, Rob Gronkowski, and Randy Moss, as the only 3 guys with 3 touchdown catches in a single game over the last 20 years. They're playing a Cincy team that was shut up for the first time in the first half since they played in Week 8 of 2014 when they got shut up by Indy 27-0. The Bengals were absolutely dominated by the Dallas Cowboys. On the offensive line just smothered the defensive line. Geno Atkins, who is a Pro Bowl player, one of the best defensive tackles in the game, for the second time in his career, had a clean stat sheet. He did not illustrate a tackle. He did not illustrate an assisted tackle. He did not even register a sack. He did nothing, which was incredibly impressive because I didn't think that Zach Martin, who was the guy that was on him most of the game, could clobber him and clean him out like that. So kudos to the Dallas offensive line. But Jeremy Hill only had 4 runs for 12 yards. Giovanni Bernard only ran for about 50 yards. A.J. Green through the first half had 1 reception for 9 yards. And it just the Dallas Cowboys just outperformed and outdominated the Cincinnati Bengals in every single way. And they're playing a Patriot team that the last time they won in New England, this was the fun little stat I found out, the last time the Bengals won in New England, you have to go back to December 7th, 1986. Was the last time the Cincinnati Bengals went into New England and won a game. I think Cincinnati, they are a talented team, and they are a desperate 2-3 team now, trying to, find their identity and trying to salvage some confidence and some muster, saying that we still are a decent team. Because right now they are showing that they clearly miss Marvin Jones and Sanu and a lot of the other pieces they let go. And Tyler Eifert, who could come back. And just of how New England's been playing, they're rested. Ninkovich looked great. I think New England should be able to win this game easily just because I just have more confidence in them. Right now they are clearly the best team in the AFC. And Cincinnati's going to run into another tough test. But I do think they will respond due to the desperation, and I do think that it will be less than an 8-point game. So I'll give Cincy their credit there, especially with Tyler Eifert, who led all tight ends with 13 receiving touchdowns last year. He will be a big help if he can play, and I do expect him to play. But I'm going to take New England here just because they clearly are the better team. Dante Scarnecchia has made that offensive line back into what it was over the last couple of years. And I just have confidence in them over a Cincinnati team that looks worse than we thought, and they're playing right now the best team in the AFC. So with that combination there, that's a New England victory all the way. But I will give Cincy their credit. I do think they will respond and make the game competitive because they got embarrassed in front of a national audience, and I think that's motivation to show that even though they may not beat New England, they're going to put a fight against them. They're going to put up a fight. So that's making Cincinnati +8, New England straight up. The next game, the Chiefs at the Raiders. This was Kansas City's worst loss they have suffered as a franchise since Week 17 of the 2012 season, when they lost to Denver, I think 35-3. And Kansas City's offense, that's kind of the Achilles heel of it because it's Alex Smith. They haven't had Jamal Charles really. They don't really have any great receiving threats. They're the 20th ranked overall offense, 22nd in total yards, and 21st in rushing yards. Though their defense has been playing pretty well, they are the number 1 defense in causing turnovers, but I will admit that is just an outlier because they got 6 from Fitzpatrick. They played Fitzpatrick and Osweiler. They've thrown a lot of turnovers, so that's a bit of an outlier. But KC's defense is doing okay. And I think, again, for Kansas City's sake, this is their litmus test to see if they can still be competitive because the Kansas City Chiefs are about to play the worst defense in the NFL in terms of total yards and passing yards, and they give up the 5th most rushing yards in the league, and they allow the 2nd most yards per rushing attempt. So, Kansas City, if you have any fight in you, right, or just knowing what you have with Jamal Charles, run the heck out of him. Run the heck out of Spencer Ware. Run the heck out of Niall Davis and Charkandrick West, and see if you can put points up on this defense. Because San Diego did it, Atlanta did it, we did it, the Ravens did it, and the Saints did it. And I think you have enough of an offense, especially on the ground, to put up enough points to cause the Oakland Raiders to sweat. And also for Khalil Mack, he's been a bit of a disappointment. Through the first 5 games, he only has 13 tackles and 1 sack. So definitely not playing like I thought he would, and I think that's been hurting this team. And also they've been just getting burned by their entire defense, but their star defensive player, not good to only have 13 tackles in 5 games. Oakland's lost 5-6 against Kansas City, but looking at what Kansas City did against the Steelers, I think the Raiders have a similar type of offense, especially with the way they've been going. They score the 5th most points, and they on offense they put up the 3rd most yards. So I think that even though Kansas City can put points on this Raiders defense, I think this Raiders offense can expose the Kansas City's defense again to put them in a spot to win the game off a, I'll say, Oakland 28, Kansas City 24, or Oakland 28, Kansas City 27 type score. And this game is a pick'em, so I'm happy that it's that. I just think, again, Oakland at the end of the day just has a little more firepower on the offense that they can make the Chiefs look like they did last time they played against Pittsburgh than KC being able to outscore the Oakland offense. So that's what making Oakland against the spread and straight up. The next game, Atlanta at Seattle. The Atlanta Falcons got 180 yards receiving from their running backs. That is a franchise record. And also, Atlanta has scored 175 points in their first 5 games. That is 35 points a game. That's the #1 offense in the NFL and a franchise record for the Atlanta Falcons. Every Atlanta wide receiver, just like in Detroit, had less than 50 yards. So the no-fly zone in Denver basically did its job, except against its running back. And they let Devontae Freeman get 88 yards rushing. And Vic Beasley is the first player with 4 sacks, like I said earlier, since Khalil Mack. So good for him. And also, I think that they got the fortunate thing of playing Paxton Lynch, the rookie who looked clearly out of his element, could not really make any consistent throw, and just for the Broncos in general through the whole game, they seemed like they would either shoot themselves in the foot, Paxton couldn't make a throw, they really couldn't run the ball that well, and the offense just looked completely out of sync. And I know this is kind of surprising, but if you look at my videos, I have not picked Atlanta the entire year. And I'm going to do it one more time. Just because here is my reasoning. Seattle's defense has a lot of Denver qualities to it, and I think the biggest reason why I'm taking Seattle are 2 things. A, it's at home for Seattle, so going into that place will be extremely tough. Pete Carroll knows his, former defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, and Russell Wilson is better than Paxton Lynch. I don't think you're going to see Paxton Lynch put up 100, or Russell Wilson put up 100 yards against his Atlanta defense. He has an offense and an arm and a ability that's much higher than Paxton's, and I think with Seattle's defense, with a competent Russell Wilson at offense and a rested Russell Wilson, the Seahawks should win this game. Should be a great game, and I think Atlanta, they show that they can use their running backs as receivers. I think that will be a problem for the Legion of Boom. But I'm going to take Seattle here because I trust Seattle's defense. More importantly, Russell Wilson is better than Paxton Lynch. Russell Wilson puts more points on the board and more pressure on the Falcons' defense that I don't think Atlanta's offense going up against Seattle's defense will be able to respond to. That's what's making Atlanta +6, but Seattle straight up. Dallas at Green Bay. Dak Prescott, second most pass attempts to start a career without an interception, most by a rookie to do so with 155 pass attempts. 182 is the record that is Tom Brady, and the all-time record, if anybody was curious, was another former Dallas Cowboy, and Troy Aikman, who holds the record with 216 straight passes without an interception. The Dallas Cowboys have been one of the surprises of the year, and Dak and Ezekiel Elliott have been dominating through the league. Ezekiel Elliott leads the league in rushing with 546 yards, and he's also the 3rd rookie running back to have 130-plus rushing yards in 3 straight games, joining Mike Anderson and Eric Dickerson. And according to Elias, they are the first team in NFL history to have a 1,000-yard rookie passer and a 500-yard rookie runner through the first 5 games of the season. So that's incredibly impressive for those 2 rookies. The Dallas defense has been able to play more relaxed. They're being able to play more motivated. They lead the NFL basically in any rushing category. They lead their tops in the league in about time possession. They are also tops in how many plays they go per drive. They take 10-play drives. So they are consistently wearing your defense down at a rate, and it's just a great thing. Morris Claiborne's been playing well, and this Dallas Cowboy team is a for real team, and right now they are the team to beat in the NFC East at this moment. And they're playing a Green Bay team that at 3-1, it's a good record, but it's not a good looking 3-1. Aaron Rodgers threw 2 interceptions for the first time since week 5 of last year when they played the Rams in Lambeau. And there's just something about Aaron Rodgers. He was just off. Jordy Nelson only about 37 yards. Randall Cobb was the big receiving threat last night. And honestly, with this game, it's going to be a great test because the Packers' run defense has given up 171 yards through the first 4 games. That's the second fewest in the Super Bowl era. And they're going against the number 1 running attack in the league. I think it's just an aspect where Aaron Rodgers can make plays on this Cowboy defense. And I just think it's something where Dak Prescott going into Lambeau, going into those cold conditions, he won't be able to throw it. And I think the Packers defense can do enough to stop Elliott to win this game. And also they do have Lacey, even though he went out for the game. I do think that he can be effective enough with Starks to provide more of a running attack than what Dallas will be able to do. It should be a close game. It's motivation for Dallas, especially with the catch being there a couple years ago. They're motivated to get revenge. I think anytime they go in Lambeau now. And I just think with that being the case, I'm going to take Rodgers over Prescott in this game just because I think he'll be able to make more throws and he's more used to that environment than what Dak Prescott's used to. Because he hasn't had to play in a cold environment the entire year so far. So that's why I'm taking Dallas +4 and Green Bay straight up. The next game, Texans and Colts. 38 straight field goals made for Adam Vinatieri. That is incredibly impressive, especially at age 42. And he's already kicked 5 50-plus yard field goals this season. The record for a single season for 50-plus yard field goals is 8. 2 of the last 3 games, T.Y. Hilton has had 170-plus yards receiving and the game-winning touchdown. The game against San Diego and Chicago. So kudos to T.Y. Hilton for that, for having 2 spectacular games that basically have saved the Colts season so far. And when you look at how it happened, I'm surprised at what a performance, because the Bears defensive line got 5 sacks on Andrew Luck, which now puts up their sack total to 20, which still by far leads the league for Andrew Luck getting sacked the most. But I'm going to take the Colts here because Houston, just not sold on them. Houston's offense yesterday, 214 total yards. Osweiler in the 2 meaningful games against the Pats and the Vikings, 19 of 42. He's 43 of 83, 380 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions. And also, I just like that Andrew Luck has only lost 3 games in the AFC South since he's been there. And this Houston team, I'm just not buying it. I think this is where Indy can take control. And I just like their team confidence better than what I've seen out of Houston. That's why I like Indy +3 and straight up. And finally, Arizona over the Jets. Fitzpatrick still hasn't scored a passing touchdown in the second half. The Cardinals got 7 sacks on the Niners. The Jets' offensive line isn't that much better right now. Larry Fitzgerald now has the most receiving touchdowns against the Niners in franchise history. Stand 6-3 in their last 9 games. Even though the Cardinals have lost 6 straight against the Jets, looking at what the Cardinals have, the Jets defense has given up 5 70-plus yard touchdowns through the air, which is the most since the 2000 Falcons. I just look at the Cardinals and say, this is a mismatch. It's a Monday night game in the desert with Carson Palmer coming back. They have way too much talent to keep the Jets defense on its heels. And also with Darrelle Revis possibly being out again, no shot. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Best of luck to all the prognosticators out there. Shout out to guys like Geo Knows, Hatbox, Billy B, Keith Bailey, Poet Ryder, Half Moon's picks, like I said earlier, Sean Ryan, Mason Cole, and all those other great prognosticators. So that's it. So until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. And until next week, so long.